No, but basically we were coffee farmers.
Is it?
Coffee, tea and macadamia farmers. And you go into every farmer's wife's garden and it's this lush, beautiful paradise. And then you step outside and it's barren earth.
Devastation.
And there's problem after problem after problem, but no one ever asked why. Why is it so beautiful here and there it's just a bit of a nightmare? And that housewife rarely ever touched any chemicals, but what she did was compost like crazy. You know, everything got composted and everything got put back in the soil. So when we started this here, coming from a very commercial background full of chemicals, I just said no ways, let's try it. And honestly, it's a winner.
Hi there, Nico here from Greenspace, and today we're with Sandy at the nursery on Chifwema. We're in her little production vegetable area at the moment, as you produce the vegetables that will end up in your cafe. Right. And everything like that, is it? What kind of turnover do you usually have to kind of do to maintain production?
Well, we try and plant sort of every couple of weeks. But we do things very differently here, you know, so everything's in the beds rather than, we do have overflow seedlings in other beds, but basically we do them in these little built-up beds, which are way easier to manage and way easier to feed. So we just much prefer this method, and it's really simple for anyone to do. It's all leftover blocks.
And not cemented in place, as I see.
No
they can
cement.
be taken down if you wanted to.
And it's important that they don't put cement, just simply so that you have good drainage. So
so drainage then happening in through the cracks and everything along those lines.
And there's a lot of like old bits of wood and rubbish soil at the bottom, you know, a carrot. Only needs like that much space. So the whole idea is that you don't have to now fill the bed with really, really great soil. You can now start to make good soil in the area that you're planting.
So you've done a hugelkultur in almost similar,
but not perfectly. You know, it's just basically chucking in what there is, and I love that we get the termites. So everybody has this big issue about termites, but the termites are super important. They are building up the fungal dominance in the soil, breaking down the wood, and they're very rarely eating the plants. They're only eating the plants when they're starving.
When they're stressed and things like that.
They're really hungry. So as long as the termites have other things to focus on, they're not going to focus on your plants. And when they get out of hand, we use Coca-Cola.
Oh really? Coca-Cola does the trick. I've heard that garlic does the trick as well.
I've never tried garlic. Coke works literally within 15 to 20 minutes, they leave.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we spray our fruit
trees. What does that say about what we're taking in when we drink Coca-Cola?
Well, apparently it's actually the smell.
Oh, okay.
It's the smell, and they hate that. So if we have a termite mound that's really bothering us or something, we actually pour a whole fat Coke, not skinny Coke.
Oh really?
Yeah, skinny Coke doesn't work, so good old Coca-Cola does the trick for us.
So in terms of your production, because I see we've got beets, we've got lettuce, these chives here?
Yeah, spring onions.
Spring onions, sorry.
Parsley, lots of herbs and things, basil, we do a lot of basil, pesto in the restaurant. That bed is deeper behind us because it's where we were planting potatoes. So, and you can see there's a few potatoes that have hung on.
There's a few errant potatoes that have that were left in.
So when it's slightly deeper.
So when you're doing your next lot of potatoes, you'll just move this top level to another bed and... Exactly.
And we start super low with the potatoes. So when you're planting potatoes, you're mounding the soil up. We're putting the soil in and building it up for them. But horseradish as well. It needs a bit of space for the roots. So
because it has a tap root. It'll go down quite a bit effectively. So, but if you have those logs and everything in there and it gets in and around, that's extra moisture that it can pull up. And
it does make for a nice easy root to deal with, but it's actually fine. It doesn't stress us. And obviously we use tons of lettuce. Baby tomatoes are done. They're about to come out. We do collect our own seed. and all we do is put them on bits of toilet paper, dry them, roll them up, and then we keep them year on. So we constantly keeping our own seed.
But do you find that the birds also plant some of the
they love them
cherry tomatoes for you? Yeah, they always kind of seem to pop up here and there. Now I see you have ornamentals here then kind of planted amongst your vegetables.
Yeah, well,
that's on purpose then? Or?
It is a bit, but it's also, we were selling cut flowers at one stage, and I do all my cuttings and stuff from the roses. But up there, I've got strawberries planted in amongst the roses, and the reason I've put the strawberries in amongst the roses is they're a great indicator plant. The strawberry will tell you when the rose is thirsty way before the rose will tell you. The strawberry will say when the plant's sick or whatever. So, yeah. So that's basically it. And then asparagus.
Just starting to reshoot again. Do you water it all year, or do you give it a rest?
I do give it a rest, and actually this year it's getting way more of a rest than it should be. Because
I haven't even started watering my asparagus in my garden yet.
It's insane. Just the whole problem with Zesco. So the watering as well is a really big thing for here. So we teach a different way of watering here. So we water every 10 days, and we water any one place for 1 hour. And the idea is
deep, thorough watering.
Yeah. So that the roots of the plant follow the water down. If you shallow water all the time, the roots come to the surface and they get scorched. And then mulching. So it's a big bugbear for me is that people burn leaves, and leaves grow mycelium. So you should be mulching your beds with leaves and.
Because that was, you were saying, in terms of the action of the termites, it just helps to feed in with the fungi and the other microbiome that exists in there.
We need the mycelium.
When you were building your soil for your raised beds, what goes into that soil?
So we're really fortunate we have great soil here. So it's just our homemade compost, which is over there, which one little pile takes 17 days. We make sure we put effective microbes in, which is great because we don't have any flies here. I don't know if you've noticed, and we have literally tons of chicken poop over there, and we don't have a fly problem. So we use that, and then we also make a solution called Jadam. Jadam is fantastic. So basically you're growing your own mycelium. So once the compost is done, we mix it with biochar, we spray it with Jadam, and then it goes into our beds. And it's super easy to do. You know? And anyone can do it. We don't use chemicals here unless we absolutely have to. And
so literally your soil is just what is the existing, this almost looks like a sandy loam or something like that, and then just adding in what you are producing yourself.
And organic matter. It's the way to go. You know, and then obviously we do a few worms, so that also ends up mixed with our compost. We don't focus on any one.
You know, it's funny that the answer to fixing soil, regardless of what kind of soil you have, be it sandy, be it clay, is always compost. It's not, add in sand to a clay soil, or, you know, clay to a sandy soil. It's like, no, just put compost.
Exactly.
That fixes everything almost,
it's all sort of common sense if you look at what nature does. That's what you try and mimic. You know, you don't mess with nature. So even weeds give you certain nutrients. We have a lot of silverleaf desmodium here, which shows a lack of nitrogen. It's a legume. So those weeds get used in the compost. You know, instead of running around weeding everything, actually it's Mother Nature saying, please cover me up, you've made me naked. You know, and I don't like being naked. So those weed seeds can remain dormant in the soil for literally hundreds of years. And then suddenly they pop up when the soil requires them.
It is one of those amazing things that we don't give weeds enough credit. We're constantly battling them, but we really ought to give them more credit.
And it's quite interesting once you start to learn your weeds and what they're giving the soil. And then,
or what they're indicators of, effectively, as well, isn't it?
Exactly.
Do you find that there's any issues that you have growing any of your vegetables underneath some of the indigenous trees that you've maintained?
No, not at all. Zambia is hot, so a little bit of shade is fine, and I'm not having a problem with them at all. I have had no issues. My whole nursery at the back there, you know, that growing section is all under the indigenous trees. It's way better, sort of little micro
microclimate.
climate for them to grow than under the shade cloth. So yeah.
I think it definitely says something about the fact that most of these kinds of trees are very deep rooted then. Essentially they're mining further down, and they're not then affecting the more surface roots of what the vegetables and things
the
like
only
that
one problem with indigenous trees is they shouldn't be watered. You know, and often you'll find people in the garden, they'll have a beautiful tree in the garden, they water their lawn like Billio, and then the tree dies. So that is a big minus.
Well, the only ones that really do well are the riverine trees, the Musacchilis, the Kaya and things like that, which really enjoy that extra water. But the Jewel Bernardia, the Brachystegia, they generally need that bit of a rest period.
So sometimes we're a little bit guilty of killing them. So when we started this here, coming from a very commercial background full of chemicals, I just said no ways, let's try it. And honestly, it's a winner. It's a winner. I mean, we get way better produce. And tomatoes aren't worth growing, generally speaking. Everyone in Zambia grows a tomato, but the scary thing is what is on that tomato? What has gone in? You know, it's full of water. Did they harvest it 10 days after they
spraying?
Sprayed it? And that's the scary thing. So there are things that we have to buy in, obviously. You know, there's gaps. Even lettuce we've had to purchase recently because I had too much of a gap. But
this is the thing, it's always that kind of guessing game and trying to balance it right when you're, especially when you're doing it to then feed another business like a restaurant. You're always going to have those kinds of ups and downs, and it's really difficult to get everything perfectly on thing, unless you literally say, sorry, we don't have that today, to the customer, which then gets difficult. You know, it's a twitchy thing. No, very true. So but if we can try and make them understand that it's seasonal and they get what's seasonal, then we're good to go.